Welcome back to Meducation Nation, and this is, as requested, the highly anticipated ultimate guide to the med school interview. Now, I've scoured YouTube for these sorts of videos, and to be honest, there isn't a video that really gives a comprehensive ultimate guide. I'm going to be talking to you about my secret sauce, the formula that I used in order to obtain 100% success in all of my med school interviews. I'm also going to be doing a giveaway, so 3 lucky viewers are going to have the chance to get a free mock interview with myself, but stay tuned to the end of the video for more details on that. Without further ado, cue that intro and let's go. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Now, the first thing that you want to make sure is that you are personalizing your preparation to the specific med school you are applying to. Med schools don't just want to know why you would be a good medical student or why you can be a good doctor. They want to know why you, in particular, are going to take advantages of the opportunities that this med school in particular offers, and why you, over the next Tom, Dick and Harry, are going to perform and excel, and therefore deserve this place more than the so-called Tom, Dick and Harrys. Therefore, you need to show that you have specific knowledge of the course, the med school. Is it pro section? Is it dissection? Is there intercalation? Are there any negatives about the course? And how do you plan to overcome these negatives? You really need to have specific knowledge of how teaching is delivered, how the course is structured, so that you can really wow them and show that you've taken the time to research their university. The next thing that you want to do is try to find out what the med school is trying to assess in their interviews, and therefore predict likely questions. Now, how can you do this? Well, in fact, there are a few secrets. The first one is my old friend, the Freedom of Information Act. Now, without getting into the nitty-gritty with respect to the law, essentially what that act allows you to do is basically you can ask any institution any bits of information, and legally they have to provide it. So if you go onto Google, and I'm talking about deep ends of Google, I'm talking about page 2, page 3, on these forums, you can see individuals under the Freedom of Information Act asking for interview mark schemes or interview questions, etc. So from this, you can ascertain what the med school is trying to assess in their interviews, and therefore you can predict likely questions. Also, Student Room is your friend, trying to scour Student Room to see the types of questions that come up. And also, you need to be proactive, take the initiative, and try to get in touch with people at the med school that you are applying to, and try to get a little insight into how their interview experience was and the types of questions that were asked. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to predict every single possible question that is going to come up in that med school interview. However, if you can predict maybe just 1 or 2, and having practiced these before, this is already going to stand you in extremely good stead. You're going to have a huge advantage over your competition. Now, the next thing for preparation is you want to make sure that you know your personal statement inside and out. I literally went through my personal statement with a fine-tooth comb, scouring it for absolutely anything that interviewers could possibly ask me, and I had about a 12-page document of research to make sure that I was not going to be caught out on anything. Anything from the minutest of details. You need to make sure you know absolutely everything. Whatever you put in your personal statement is fair game to be asked. I knew my stuff so well, I was literally trading blows for blows with consultant cardiologists. So now, simultaneously, in order to prep for your med school interview, you want to be reading this book called Med School Interviews by ISC Medical. This book is the holy Bible when it comes to med school interviews. It covers everything from the structure of the NHS, the history of medicine. It covers, big scandals, and it also has over 150 practice med school interview questions with explained answers that covers both panel and MMI interviews. It's not sponsored. This is the book that, is the tried and tested and has been used for generations of interview candidates. The best way in which I think you should use this book is, make some notes or read the background information on the NHS, the history of medicine, etc. However, when it comes to the actual interview questions, sit down with someone else, get someone else to read you the question, then you should answer the question on the spot, no preparation, and see what you can do. And then immediately after, try and compare your answer that you've given to the model answer in the book. That's probably the best way of working through the book and getting the most bang for your buck, so to speak. My final top tip for preparation, and that is obviously practice the interviews. Now, I encourage you guys to get into groups of friends and practice the interviews amongst yourselves. And I personally think that groups of 3 are the best in order to have the most productive interview sessions possible. Have one person being the interviewer, have the other person answering the questions, and then another person that is simply observing, and then you want to get feedback from the interviewer and the observer. This way you get feedback from 2 types of people, different points of views, different perspectives, and also it means that when the interviewer is asking you questions, they can be quite distracted. So having that observer there is quite key in terms of, trying to get all the essential feedback that you need, and then simply rotate amongst yourselves. This leads to really, really productive sessions. And you know what? Have a bit of banter.
This is great banter. It really is.
This is meant to be fun at the end of the day. You don't want to be stressing yourselves out. Crack jokes, have a laugh, and get some work done. So how to structure your answers. Without any clear, defined structure to your answers, you're going to find yourselves essentially, going off on a bit of tangent, and your answers can come across a bit waffly. So having a structure is very, very important. One structure that I highly recommend is called the STAR structure, STARR. Now, I've mentioned this technique in previous videos. It's that good. And the S essentially stands for situation. What was the situation that you were in? The T, task. What was the task that you had to do? A, what was the action that you took? R, what was the result of that action? And then R again, reflection. Make sure that you are reflecting on your experiences and what went well, what didn't go so well, what could be improved in the future. That's really what the med school wants to know about. However, when it comes to ethical questions in particular, you want to throw the STAR technique out the window, and you want to be using and structuring your answers around the 4 pillars of medical ethics, and that is non-maleficence, beneficence, autonomy, and justice. So now when it comes to the debate, to script or not to script, well, my answer is going to be unique and different from everyone else, and that's because we give you the best possible information on this channel. So my answer to this question is it really depends on you as a person. So what I did myself was I created essentially a few bullet points that I wanted to mention for my answer, essentially as a skeleton structure, and then I would expand on these points and address them live while I'm speaking my answer. However, my skill set allows me to do this live. I fully appreciate that there are individuals out there who aren't going to be able to speak fluently under pressure, without a lot of stutters, ums and ahs, and may even have a mind blank. So for those individuals, I would highly recommend that you write out your answers and memorize them. Just be careful not to make it sound too rehearsed, and to make sure that you're not coming across as a robot, as that can really detract from how well engaged the interviewer is, and how genuine your answer comes across as. Your non-verbal communication is arguably more important than your verbal communication. And in fact, research of the literature shows that between 73 to 93% of what you actually get across in an interview is non-verbal communication, i.e., less than 10% of what you actually get across in an interview is the words that you say. Non-verbal communication is extremely important and is often neglected. So first impressions matter. Make sure that you greet the interviewer, you introduce yourself, be friendly, be smiley. Make sure that you essentially have a good body posture, an open body posture, you're not closed off, and make sure that you lean slightly forwards to show interest and maintain good eye contact. First impressions, extremely important. Now, another technique that you guys should use is something called active listening. So that's essentially whenever you are not saying anything, you essentially want to show to the interviewer that you are engaged in the conversation and you want to show that you are interested, and essentially show to the interviewer that you're not bored and the interviewer is not talking to a brick wall. So how can you do this? So you can do things such as, sort of nod your head in response to things that the interviewer says, maintain eye contact and open body posture, again leaning slightly forwards to show that you're interested, and then maybe when you're answering the questions, maybe paraphrase the question. This is also a really good cheat code in terms of buying yourself more time to think up of an answer. And then finally, you want to make sure that you are avoiding distracting behaviors. These are behaviors that are almost unconscious and you may not be aware of, which is why, doing interview practice in front of someone else to give you feedback is very important. These things include, fidgeting, playing with your hair, overuse of gestures and hand movements, and leg shaking, for instance. Now, verbal communication is as important as non-verbal. So with verbal, you want to make sure that you are engaging the interviewer. If I sat here and spoke very slowly, monotone, without any sort of expression in my voice, changes in pace, changes in volume, changes in pitch, tempo, etc., you guys would zone out. And the same thing goes for the interviewer. So you'll make sure you're very engaging. And then finally, empathy and compassion is characteristics that most medical schools will assess in some form or another in the med school interview. So, a little cheat code that you can use, especially in, for instance, the role play stations, is to have sort of a bank of empathetic, compassionate phrases that you can sort of work in to your answers. For instance, things like, "I'm so sorry to hear that. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you. If they're in pain, are you okay to carry on? Can I get you any painkillers?" Because realistically, everyone knows the definition, but it's how you show it is the difficult part. So this is going to really help you out. And finally, show your personality. If you think about it, this interviewer has probably asked the same exact question to hundreds and hundreds of candidates, and it's probably been sitting there for hours and hours of the day. And therefore, if you are not showing your personality, if you're not engaging that interviewer, they're going to zone out, and it's going to detrimentally impact your interview performance, because at the end of the day, it's a subjective measure. Interview is subjective, and you want to try and get the interviewer to like you as much as possible. In order to do that, you need to show off your personality. Who are you as a person? As well as showing your personality, if you finish your question early, don't just sit there in silence. Try and strike up a conversation to show that you have some communication skills, and also just try and get the interviewer to like you a bit more. Thank you very much for tuning into another banger of a video. Now, as promised, I'm going into details of the competition in which 3 of you lucky viewers are going to have a mock interview by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tomorrow's Medic, live in person. So essentially, the way that it's going to work is you have to like the video and you have to comment down below that you would like to participate. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick at random 3 winners from the comment section. I'll then reply to your comments and make sure that you check your replies, essentially asking you for your Instagram, in which I'll DM you a Zoom link at a time that is convenient for us both. If you do not win the competition and you still want to have some interview practice with the man, the myth, the legend himself, then you can do that, as I do interview tutoring and preparation. However, I'm only going to take on a very select few people, as you know, for me it's all about quality, not quantity, and I simply don't have the time to be doing it for a lot of people. So if you do want that, if you are interested in that, DM me for more information, but it's going to be very, very limited, so I encourage you guys to act as soon as possible. Thank you very much again for tuning in. I hope this video was extremely useful, and also comment down below if you want me to do a sort of mini series of 2 to 3 minute video clips on answering common interview questions like why medicine, strengths and weaknesses, etc. Until next time, it's been your boy Tomorrow's Medic. Make sure you like, subscribe. Education Nation over and out.